Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion this afternoon. The panel discussion is entitled A Strong Youth Economy as a Catalyst for Economic Growth and National Productivity. This discussion today is part of the activities for the National Productivity Awareness Week, which is sponsored and brought to you by the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council. I'd like to welcome everyone for joining, including the persons joining virtually, and also our in-house audience for making it here today for this timely discussion, and also our distinguished cast of panelists to share their views and dialogues. My name is Javan Lewis, and I am an economist who serves as the Tourism Key Results Area Manager at the Performance Management and Delivery Unit. I also served as an economist in the Research and Policy Unit at the Ministry of Finance, and I am honored to be the moderator for this discussion here today. And after seeing the expertise of the panelists, I do hope that it was also my expertise that I was able to get this opportunity here today. I am sure that over the past few months, one of the most mentioned and talked about topics is that of the youth economy. There is no universally agreed definition of the youth group. However, according to International Labour Organization, the youth is defined as persons aged 15 to 24. However, locally, the Central Statistics Office of St. Lucia define youth as those aged 15 to 29. Some institutions go as far as defining youth persons aged 18 to 34. So our discussion today, we will loosely be referring to the youth as persons between the ages 15 to 34. I see some probably 34-year-olds smiling. I'm sure, right? I'm sure their backs and knees might say otherwise, but youth is in spirit and not in age, right? So the youth is considered to be a country's most valuable asset, and investing in the youth brings tremendous social and economic benefits. The youth today have been faced with a myriad of challenges, such as high rates of unemployment, poverty, lack of business opportunities, and skills relevant to market needs. The socio-economic engagement and participation of youth is considered to be a must and not a luxury for governments all over the world. This calls for young persons to be economically supported in order to unleash their potential to create economic wealth, sustainable, decent employment, increase their savings and investment levels, and develop their human resource capacities, entrepreneurship, and technical knowledge. In today's discussion, we will be focused on the youth economy and how it can create the economic support needed for young persons in order to enable them to overcome the challenges faced and be able to contribute to economic growth and national productivity. Before we get into this discussion, I would like to allow each panelist to introduce themselves so that we could get familiar with their backgrounds and we could see where their views will be coming from. So I start off to my far right with Mr. Brent St. Catherine.
Okay. All right, good day to all. My name is, sorry. All right, good day to all. My name is Brent St. Catherine, and I'm the head of the Innovation Hub and Gateways program at South Louis Community College.
All right, Ms. Steffi Alfred.
Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Steffi Alfred. I am the Youth Enterprise Equity Fund Investment Officer with the St. Lucia Development Bank. I am also the treasurer of the St. Lucia National Youth Council.
Okay, thank you so much, Steffi. We move on to Ms. Anya Edwin.
Good day, everybody joining us. My name is Anya Edwin, and I am currently representing the St. Lucia National Youth Council as their president.
Okay, wonderful. We move on to the next table. Right next to me, we have Ms. Anya Charles.
Good day, I am Anya Charles, founder and president of Youth Development and Empowerment Program. I have been dealing with underprivileged and youth for 11 years, fostering a support network for our youth through various training sessions such as customer service training, public speaking, and other career and character building sessions. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you today, and I look forward to a great discussion on the future and direction of our youth through the youth economy.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. And we have Mr. Dinesh.
Daswani, yes. Good afternoon. My name is Dinesh Daswani. I'm the program coordinator for Boost, which is a virtual incubator and accelerator program here in St. Lucia. And I've worked with the youth for almost over 10 years, starting with mentorship and tourism mentorship as well, in terms of entrepreneurial mentorship as well with the Youth Business Trust. Thank you.
All right. So we start off today's discussion. We get right into it. And we all have heard, I think by now, the youth economy. So I would like to ask our panelists, more specifically Steffi, what do you believe is the youth economy? We've been hearing it, but what do you believe is the youth economy?
Thank you, Jovan. I think that's a very heavy question. From my perspective, I think that a youth economy, and not necessarily the youth economy, would be one where we revise the way in which we look at youth, or we involve youth in the affairs of any economy or our economy. It is one where we have a deliberate inclusion of young people on all levels, and that comes from policy, starting from the implementation of, or the establishment of boards, for example. Being very strategic in the individuals and the people we put on these boards, the young people who we put there to represent young people. Young people, I get very passionate when I think about youth.
That's great.
Because it is so important, and it is so sad that we do not necessarily include young people in the decision making, and we look at young people as being the future of St. Lucia when we are very present. And I just look at the youth economy, or a youth economy, as one where we are very deliberate in the things that we do when it comes to young people in St. Lucia. I'll stop here for now.
And I'll continue though.
That's right.
I think that a youth economy does exist already. Although it's not written in principle, it's not written in policy, I think that the contribution or the participation of young people in an economy of any country means that there is an existing youth economy. What I think is missing, however, is a more equitable distribution of the country's wealth and resources to better empower young people or develop young people at all levels.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, too. We will get into how the youth economy deals with these challenges faced by the youth. Before we move on, earlier I did mention that the youth age range of persons who fall within the category, I mentioned it according to an age range. But with this specific initiative, what would the ideal target group of the youth economy be? What do you think, Mr. Brent?
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, so the exact target group, that's a difficult question because an economy is all-encompassing, so we have to look at all age ranges, but let us start with the youth economy. The youth economy, although the age range is described as from 15 years up, I think we have to go even further than that or beyond that. We have to start at a very early age with entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship education needs to be involved in the youth economy. Okay, so we have to start training young people from like primary school and so forth on exploring the options of becoming business owners and being resources to the economy. Because young people now are entrepreneurs. I mean, you hear about people like 5-year-old kids. There's one example where this 5-year-old kid wanted this pair of fancy socks and his mom said, no, you're not going to buy socks, you're going to make socks. And he made socks. The children at his school liked it, and then he eventually formed a business around it. So we have to target from that younger age right up to 35 if we're dealing with just youth. So youth starts from a very early age.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, so what about you, Steffi? What would be your ideal target group when we speak about the youth economy?
Well, as Brent would have mentioned, interventions would need to come in at different points in time. An individual at 5 years old, getting a particular intervention as it relates to a program, getting training, or being exposed to mentorship from a very early age is something that needs to happen. When we look at the youth economy or a youth economy, I don't just think of the youth economy as being one that tackles entrepreneurship. I don't necessarily think that every young person has the zeal to become an entrepreneur. I know that we want to encourage that, and that has been something that we've been telling young people as opposed to training them to be entrepreneurs. But as I said, I think the intervention should happen at a very early age. It could start from maybe at primary school, where you probably have mentorship programs going up to the secondary school level, where a child may know at that point, hey, I want to become a doctor. And yes, we will want to breed that entrepreneurial spirit within them, but at the same time, we need to formalize that level of training first. So what about getting that child once a week, maybe once a month, you bring that child to spend the day with a doctor or something of that sort. I think we need to be very flexible as it relates to the economy, and interventions would happen at all levels.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I could see the in-house audience is already waiting to ask questions. Keep in mind that when we get towards the end, we will be taking questions and comments from you guys and also from our audience online. So keep that in mind. Get your questions ready, get your comments ready, and we will be furthering this discussion. So as we move on, Ms. Anya Charles, what are some of the challenges and limitations that the youth in St. Lucia may experience that would block their participation or their contribution to the economy or national productivity?
Thank you. Some of the challenges and limitations that our youth face, I believe, start from school. Not everyone is academically inclined, and schools offer conventional academia. But we do not focus on individuals with different skill sets. And this is by no means to say that the curriculum schools offer, it's not important. I'm not saying that at all. What I believe must happen or should happen, schools should determine skill sets outside of the conventional academia. We need to be able to nurture our young people's passions and dreams, and I think it's a question we need to ask ourselves. How do we nurture creativity from schools? Another limitation our young people face would be access to capital. Those who are leaving school and all they have with them are dreams. It is difficult for our young people to get access to capital to live out those dreams. I also think lack of opportunity and lack of information. Again, not everyone is afforded the opportunity or the access to internet or networking. And overall, speaking with the right people, it's important that we need to educate our young people on the difference between limited liability and LLCs, and overall legally registering their brand.
Okay,
Thank
great,
you.
great, wonderful. And Mr. Denish, from your experience in working with youth through the Boost Marketing Initiative and what have you, what are some of the challenges that you came across from the youth?
Well, I have to agree with everything Anya said. Education is very important. Not everyone has the same skill set, as you said. Nobody's in the same box. Everybody has their own box they're in. And we need to identify which box which person goes in, and sometimes create new boxes that are available for new people, because the next great idea is going to come out from the youth, and it's not really set yet. We don't have an idea of what that person's going to look like and what their idea is going to look like. But the other challenge that I want to bring up that she did not bring up is finance challenges. We just don't have the opportunity to have enough financing for the youth right now to make them explore the opportunities. And one thing about entrepreneurship and the youth economy, there's chances, you have to have chances to fail to succeed.
Yep.
And in order to fail to succeed, you need financial options. You need to try out your product in the industry. You need to try out your service. And until you've tried out your service, you don't know where your passion can go from that. A very good example, and I always use this example, is Mark Zuckerberg created a program before he created Facebook because he had the financial means to do so.
Right.
And he failed at that product, then he created Facebook. So I see that we can easily do that once we have the financial options available for the youth.
Okay, wonderful. So as we move along, I realize that we got an extra panelist who joined us, Mr. Calix George Jr. So the next question will go straight over to you. And these challenges that were just mentioned, How do you see a youth economy initiative probably handling these challenges and remedying these challenges for the youth of St. Lucia?
Hi, good afternoon to all, and of course, thanks, Javan, for that question. I'm, of course, coming in late, so I didn't actually hear the conversation as to what particular challenges that you're referring to. But of course, I'm assuming here that for a lot of young people, it's being able to access opportunities. It is being able to access finance, as of course Dinesh was just mentioning as a major impediment to be able to enter into that economic sphere. The reality is that when we speak about youth economy all around the world right now, youth economy is what is driving most enterprise that you're seeing, most innovation that you're seeing right about now. And I think young people, by the very virtue of being part of that system, I mean, you literally have 2-year-olds on tablets, on touchpads, and that's what they know. They're growing up in that sphere. Whereas where I was literally on that cusp, I know that period of dial-up internet and literally seeing every single person on St. Lucia using the internet at that time. In this current era, it's a completely different world, and I think certainly we have to come to terms with that, and how even how we structure our services is still showing that kind of bias towards the old systems. And I think realizing that we need to make significant inroads towards making it easier for young people to even access government services, and having them drive that is one of those areas, and opportunity areas for a lot of young people. So when you speak about the youth economy, it's really about ensuring that our overall economic drivers are making that paradigm shift towards, if we're providing a service, the first thing we should be thinking about is how can we provide that service online, how we can ensure that we're talking about virtual environments. And of course, it's obvious now, thanks to COVID, as this major disruptor, but it certainly is something that we should have been pushing on our own, and I think we're definitely being thrust into that way. So it's a changing mindset, and changing what the ideas as to what is development, and what would development look like for young people. So it means, therefore, before we talk about maybe building more infrastructure, can we be thinking about a different kind of infrastructure, digital infrastructure, that will in fact unleash the possibilities for a lot of young people. I mean, we're seeing it already happening, where nearly every single sector is being put into overdrive as a result of that. So creative industries is of course a digital product now, and that's what you've got to deal with. That's what people are taking that opportunity with. You see it in terms of people who are going out there and setting up online businesses, and of course it's a big problem for traditional business, because nobody wants to rent a property in cash streets maybe for a lot of money, but the businesses, how it's operating is going to change. And I think young people are very much into that mold. There are a lot of them who are already there, and there are a lot more who I think need to be able to see that opportunity for them to push forward. So, the days of maybe when you went to school and math and English was what was compulsory, we now need to shift to a point where IT is compulsory. Information technology is what is driving the world, and that's what we need to be looking at. So I can say a lot more, but I think I'm going to end there, because I don't know how this is structured.
Thank you so much. I move over to Brent. And with your experience in dealing with innovation, how do you see that coming into play into remedying the challenges faced by the youth?
All right, great. Thank you for that. And I want to echo some of the sentiments of Mr. Calix and Anya. The world is changing. In fact, we are in the Industrial Revolution 4.0 right now, which deals with technology. So as Mr. Calix said, the normal English and math and basic courses that we do at school no longer cut it. You need to go beyond that. We need to go to technology. And as I said earlier, from a young age, we need to start teaching entrepreneurship, okay? So to your question of how does innovation affect the youth economy, innovation is now the driving force of the youth economy. We have countries like, I believe it's Estonia, that is 97% connected via technology, so all the government processes are basically digitized. You look around, everybody here has a mobile phone, and I can guarantee you everybody uses an app on that mobile phone. We're able to deliver this seminar now because of the technology that we're using. So technology is all around us, and it is not going away, okay? What Sir Arthur Lewis is doing right now, in fact, what I'm tasked with, I'm the head of the Innovation Hub, and we are creating 5 innovation labs to address technology training for our young people, all right? The first one is an ICT Media Lab, and this is where we want to get into, as I spoke about, app development, software development, animation, and so forth. We need to get on board with these things in St. Lucia, and we need young people who are more creative than older people, that's been proven, to get involved in that, okay? The other lab we have, and I'll try not to mention all of them, the other lab we have, which is very important, is a virtual reality lab, and virtual reality is becoming extremely important right now. I mean, given the restrictions, the travel restrictions when it comes to COVID, we see people doing a lot of virtual tours, and that is becoming a very profitable business.
Right.
Also, in terms of education, virtual reality is a tool that is being used overseas that we haven't adopted here. And I'll give you an example. It's very expensive to do heart surgery and these things. You go abroad, it's very costly. Here, we cannot afford the equipment and that kind of training. However, we can do it using virtual reality. You don't have to work on a live heart, but you can actually use tools and perform that kind of surgery, you know, within a safe environment, not on an actual person.
I hope not.
So what I'm saying is that we are developing these labs because we are aware that there is a transition, and we need to bring the youth on board to be able to profit from that.
Okay,
Right?
wonderful,
That's-
wonderful. So you mentioned a lot of different focused areas, right? I am keen to hear from the other panelists. What other focus areas, apart from virtual reality and the technology, what other areas do you believe that the youth economy should focus on? Let me go to you, Steffi. What other areas do you believe that the focus of the youth economy should be?
Again, the youth economy is very broad. We speak a lot about entrepreneurship, and I think if we look at the basics of entrepreneurship in terms of being able to provide young people with the education necessary to tap into whatever aspect, whatever sector that they would want to go into. So entrepreneurship, if that's a fair answer, I think is one of the areas, because again, in my view, I don't think the youth economy is solely entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship as a sector, entrepreneurship as a space where we are now developing young people. Financial literacy is a serious issue among St. Lucians, among people, generally. So when you look at financial literacy among young people, it's even a more serious situation. Our young people do not understand the importance of record keeping. Our young people do not understand the importance of filing taxes.
Young people are not taught.
Our young people are not taught.
The importance
They're told, hey, you need to become an entrepreneur because we don't have jobs for you. You need to become an entrepreneur. But are they trained? No. So I think in all the development of entrepreneurship and everything that we want to do and going into sectors of VR, which are 100% the direction that we should be going as it relates to technology, but the basis of entrepreneurship is not being taught, or young people are not being trained in these sectors.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So, Mr. Calix, I come back to you. So these highlighted areas or focus areas that were highlighted, how do you see them or these areas helping you contribute to the economic growth and national productivity of St. Lucia?
Oh, that's a very broad question. I think when I think of youth economy, I think of the economy in totality, right? Because young people are going to be in every single sector. So it's not just going to be, I mean, when we talk about entrepreneurship, that's a cross-cutting idea, right? You can be an entrepreneur in anything. And they need to see that that is the possibility, no doubt about it. But the question is, of course, are we providing the necessary skill sets, the necessary abilities, resources to be able to support that and to be able to give young people that opportunity to be able to compete. So it would be wonderful to think that, you know, and the part of the problem is that we're not really even too sure about the metrics.
Yeah.
So we quite often hear about this figure about 35%, 40% youth unemployment, and that tends to be the number we hear when we speak about young people. But we don't really hear about how many businesses are being formed and created by young people. We're not too sure of what is youth participation in a number of various sectors. So I think part of the challenge is first defining the involvement of young people across all these sectors. And of course, there are some areas where young people are gravitating towards. So culture and creative industries is certainly one of them.
Yep.
Renewable energy is another area. We're hearing of course, well, ICT in a very general way, digital economy. So a lot of these nice colors that we hear about, orange economy, green economy, that's young people there who can certainly be driving that. And I think the question is, what do they require to be able to get better access? Now, you may have a situation where, let's say, in the construction sector, you know, where you have set players, usually very large players. Is there a possibility from the public sector side? Can we provide some level of a handicap towards youth-owned enterprises so that they can get a share of the pie? You know, in terms of how we work in the tendering processes, do they get some sort of advantage? Do they get some sort of maybe a quota or some sort of idea where we can know, or across the government perhaps, in terms of public procurement, it should be perhaps worked in that we know that, yes, companies that are driven by young people can in fact get part of that pie.
All right, thank you so much. So apart from the economic aspect of the youth economy and how it can, it could provide the youth with an avenue to contribute to the economic growth of the country, there is also the social aspect. The youth are facing a number of challenges socially. So I would like Ms. Anya Charles to tell us how she believes on that side of the coin. How do you believe that the Youth Economy Initiative can work towards remedying that challenge or the social challenges that the youth face?
Well, what I believe we should definitely have is more interaction with our young people. Our young people are brilliant, and I think we also have to remember St. Lucia produced 2 Nobel laureates during a time when technology was not as advanced as it is right now. So our young people have everything at their fingertips. I think lots of consultation as well with our young entrepreneurs to get a more insight on their challenges, and also we can gain from their learnings so we could strengthen an all-inclusive youth economy ministry. I think from the schools, we should have a plan or a system in place that is important to identify our young people and nurture those skills and talents. Companies like SEDU and social transformation officers, I think could work hand in hand as well with the youth economy to provide our people with the knowledge and educate them on the different laws that govern their ideas.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So we all know that St. Lucia continues to be hampered by some developmental challenges such as poor distribution of wealth and also youth unemployment. This stems from the same question that I asked Ms. Anya Charles. Now we move it over to Ms. Anya Edwin. I realize the Anyas are, I have to say Anya C and Anya E. So Anya E, how do you see the youth economy dealing with these issues such as poor distribution of wealth and youth unemployment?
I'm happy you mentioned earlier creating the balance between economic and social, because I believe for any country to be progressive, successful, we need to create the balance between economic and social. And in a youth economy especially, noting all these social ills that are faced by our young people, it is important to create that bridge and work in achieving both of them hand in hand. So first of all, I think that we need to tackle social justice on a very broad scale. And when I say tackle social justice, I'm referring to equity in education, equitable access to healthcare, quality healthcare, that is, employment opportunities, and even housing as well. There are so many others. We started establishing a minimum wage because that's not something that exists in St. Lucia. We also need to ensure that there is free access to public early childhood education for the entire population. We talk about, or we focus a lot on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship skills building from the primary school or infant school age. We need to also take into consideration the importance of inculcating social behavioral patterns that will build the holistic child or young person to ensure that they're ready when they're at the age where they can learn the necessary skill set or tools to become an entrepreneur, to contribute a greater part to the whole youth economy or just St. Lucia's economy at large. So we need to ensure that free access to public education, childhood education, is available for the population. We need to focus on funding into differential job markets, and the word of the day, or one of the words of the day, or the topics of the day, is definitely artificial intelligence and the importance of innovation within an economy, especially one that is now being impacted by a world pandemic. So that is something that we need to pay focus on. I mean, it is simple as investment in artificial intelligence to address climate change, because young people are being faced with the crisis of climate change at this point in time. I mean, to summarize or to just encapsulate what I'm trying to say, knowing that there are a lot of other persons to add to the discussion, I think we need to diversify our main economy income generator, and which we all know is tourism, in terms of going into or considering exploring sports tourism, health tourism, agricultural tourism, creative arts tourism. I mean, there is just so much to add on, but we have focused too much on infrastructural tourism. There are other avenues that young people or the economy can benefit from. We just need to diversify every aspect of our living, every aspect of our teaching in the education system, and of course, place a very high emphasis on social ills and even parenting skills. Parenting skills is very important to developing a child, particularly at the formative ages, which is between, toddler or infancy and secondary school life.
All right, wonderful. So apart from these challenges, we also have the challenge of there being a housing deficit in St. Lucia. So I pose this question to Mr. Carlix George Jr. How would you allow or propel the youth to be able to own their own houses, or how would you deal with the housing deficit when you look at the youth and the youth wanting to own property or own houses, because it is an issue for the youth. So how do you see that an initiative like the youth economy, how does it deal with that type of challenge?
Thanks, Javan. And of course it's important because, real estate is an important aspect in terms of wealth creation and sustainability, being able to access loans through collateral, and of course, having a good quality of life. We all want to have a safe place to live in as our own. Of course, the challenges that we find here are very similar to other parts of the world, where you're seeing significant changes in what is the appetite for this idea of in the US it's called the American dream. Everybody wants to have a four-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and a lawn and all of that, and we're seeing that millennials, Zennials and millennials, their appetite for that is changing. They don't want the responsibility for going out and mowing the lawn and taking care of lots of land, and perhaps some people might say that's a bad thing because we're shifting away from our agrarian roots, but it shows that what the expectation is different now, and I think maybe we need to find out what young people actually want right now in St. Lucia. So it may not be that traditional form of a single family dwelling unit that takes up a lot of space, 8,000 square feet and more usually. They may actually want an apartment style type of accommodation, a rent-to-own sort of arrangement that works for them. So I think we definitely need to figure that out. And you can see how those types of movements have certainly changed cities and cause for regeneration. And that's what we're talking about right now, RE, right? How do you renew? How do you regenerate? How do you do a lot more with less? And not this idea of continued urban sprawl and, you know, cut down more trees and take up more land and, you know, that kind of thinking that was prevalent maybe the generation before. Young people now may very well be more willing to look at those types of areas, fixer-uppers and what have you. So I think the opportunity for that needs to be looked at to be able to tackle a lot of our challenges, our urban challenges, without necessarily looking at the really high cost of development. Because again, we're a mountainous country, we have limited flat land, it costs a lot to develop on hillsides. So how we manage that holistically for young people, I think is a really important thing. They may be very much more comfortable in a more communal type of setting, maybe you have shared facilities, whatnot, and that might work for a lot of young people, which may not have worked for our parents' generation.
All right, wonderful. I see you giving ideas to the real estate people inside of it. Their brains are ticking. So there, I go over to Miss Anya Charles. The youth economy. It can be an initiative given to an existing department, an existing ministry, or it can be by itself a separate unit. What is your view of the youth economy being a separate unit or being an initiative as part of an existing unit, and what advantages or disadvantages do you see coming out of that?
Thank you. I believe youth economy should be a separate unit. I think this initiative should be taken as a revolutionary initiative. It encourages change, and we all know change is inevitable. It can also function as its own ecosystem for skills and talents outside of the conventional academia, like we spoke about earlier, to facilitate trade, allowing our nation to benefit on a whole. This ecosystem has the potential to create a trickle-down effect as it addresses unemployment and increases spending power among our young people. As a standalone unit, it will preserve the significance of its initiative, especially as it's still in its infant stage. We wouldn't want it to get overshadowed by other ministries. It would provide proper accountability as well on this flagship initiative that the government, this new government, is sharing with us today.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, wonderful. I appreciate that. So Mr. Danish, coming from your expertise from Boost and your experiences in a new unit, I would say, that would that would engage the youth in these types of ventures, do you see there being some merit in the youth economy being a separate unit on its own?
Thank you. Of course, it has to be a separate unit. As Anya said, it needs to have its own identity, and that's what really is important. And it has to have its own goals, and it has to have its own missions, and also measurables, because the measurables are very important when it comes to youth economy. So it has to have its own measurables. However, I still think it needs to tap into partnerships maybe with Boost and other programs like incubators and accelerators, partnerships with the Youth Business Trust, and the different entities that help with the youth, because you can create a new unit, but you cannot ignore the current youth climate that we have, the current youth initiatives you already have in St. Lucia. So it's almost like it's a separate unit, but involves every other current unit that we have. So we don't just get rid of the old and bring in the new. We get a hybrid of the old and new.
Okay.
And we get new ideas from both.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I know Miss Steffi Alfred was itching to also answer that question. I'm not sure why, but let's say why.
Maybe because I have an opposing view. I don't necessarily think that the youth economy should be its own separate unit. And I have that belief because we have a lot of agencies already providing overlapping assistance, for one. By virtue of that, you have a lot of them working in silos, trying to achieve the same goal, and I see it as sort of a wastage of resources.
Okay. All
With the development of a separate unit, I think we could have an office, maybe in the Ministry of Youth Development, or in a unit that already exists someplace in commerce, if we're focusing on entrepreneurship, but somewhere maybe young people could go to be able to get the proper direction that they need, because young people don't like to waste time. We want to go to some place and they tell us, okay, to register your business, you have to go to SBDC, then you're in your house, then whatever. Maybe have all the forms at that one place. But I don't necessarily think that we should put resources into developing a unit or a ministry that focuses solely on the youth economy, where the youth economy is supposed to be an inclusion of youth in the broader economy. I think we need to revise the way in which we're handling our current processes, so that young people do not get so discouraged. That is my point.
Okay, wonderful.
I just want to say, Javan, that, or to add to what Steffi said, because I totally agree with Steffi. So I just want to add one line and say that what the youth need now, the youth economy need now, which is already in existence but not necessarily in policy, is more distribution of resources that's going to target the development of young people.
Okay. All right. So from that question alone, you could see how diverse the youth age group is. Opposing views on that question. But that brings us nicely into the next topic, or the next question under that topic, of the existing initiatives and that are geared towards innovation and entrepreneurship. How do you see these entities assisting in the formation or the foundation of the youth economy? I'm posing this question to Mr. Brent.
All right. So let me. The initiatives geared towards youth inclusion in the economy and increasing their capacity have been slow to come about. All right. And this is why I want to go back to, and I know I sound like a marketing person for Alpha Lewis, but I do work for Alpha Lewis, and I think we're doing a lot. We have decided to create the innovation labs, all right, to foster innovation, because there are a lot of gaps which are not being explored, all right? And I want to give an example. We are known as small island developing states, yet still we are large ocean states, which means that we have an abundance of marine resources that other places don't have. Yet still, our fisheries industry and so forth are not doing us justice in terms of food security. And one of the reasons is that we're not leveraging enough technology. Okay. For instance, I don't think St. Lucia has one underwater drone, and an island surrounded by so much water. All right. So we're not monitoring our marine health like it's supposed to be monitored. We're not using enough sensors and so forth. Also, in the areas of agriculture, and again, I go to food security. You know, how many smart farms do we have in St. Lucia? Okay, so I think that there is more to be done in terms of incorporating these innovative methods and doing more for promoting innovation in St. Lucia. And I think that Alpha Lewis now is doing that. And I again will sound like a marketing person, but we are developing labs to support things like agritech, the blue economy, the orange economy, which is creative industries and so forth. And I think there's more to be done, and we are helping with that cause.
Okay,
Thanks.
so to make you further sound like you're marketing the Alpha Lewis Community College,
Yeah.
I know that online and even here in-house we have some persons who are interested in the initiatives geared towards the stuff like the creative industries.
Right.
So are there any prerequisites, or what do these young people need to be a part of these labs that would encourage or develop their art and allow them to contribute to the economy?
So thank you for that. The other thing I'm responsible for at Alpha Lewis is the Gateways to Global Careers program. And what it is, it's a 2-year incubation program where you get hands-on training. All right, and one of the things that was insisted upon is that we ask students for basic math and English. We don't ask them to have grade 1s in everything, because it's very practical. It's doing, it's starting your business, it's prototyping, it's designing, and so forth. And we want to be all inclusive, because I am into academia, but there's this thing that has been said, that it's not A students who start businesses, it's actually the C students, all right? And A students work for C students, which means that entrepreneurship doesn't have to be a solely academic exercise, okay? It can be practical, you can learn from doing, you can learn from apprenticeship and so forth. So we try to embed that apprenticeship program at Sir Arthur Lewis by having this practical exercise.
Okay, great. So through this initiative, you could already see the critical role that the education system plays when we speak about the development of youth, when they contribute to economic growth and national productivity. So I go over to you, Steffi, and in your view, how else do you see the education sector or the education institutions contributing to that level of growth when we speak about youth?
When you think about youth in the youth economy, or youth in terms of entrepreneurship?
As you see fit.
Well, let's focus on entrepreneurship. I think the education sector or system, we really need to revise the way in which we look at the curriculum, what we put into the curriculum. I was a teacher for 4 years, so whenever I wanted to be some level of intervention in young people, the first place they would target is the school, because that's where the students would spend most of their time. So I could imagine how teachers feel hearing that, I think we need to take it to the schools and we need to train them, go in the schools, so therefore we need to better equip our teachers. The education system, of course, plays a great role in that, because as I said, as it relates to the training, as compared to the telling of young people, we have to do it with the schools. So Arthur plays a great role. CARE plays a greater role. We need to really look at how we advertise CARE as an institution, or as CARE being an afterthought. If you fail, then go to CARE. No, we need to change that. Okay. So we need to look at the education system, revise it. We need to ransack things, put them back together. We need to fix things in St. Lucia. If we want young people to participate, we need to revise the way in which we do things.
Okay, so you just rumfle up everybody.
Just rumfle everybody.
All right, good.
Overhaul, according to the minister.
All right, so apart from the education system, I'm moving over to Mr. Calix George Jr. here. What are some ways in which other public or private sector entities can assist in the youth economy movement? In general, or you could bring it down and specify in which areas that you think other institutions and entities can contribute to the initiative of the youth economy.
Thanks, Javan. And I think it comes back to the point that Steffi was raising regarding, do you house this in some agency, or do you try to ensure that the agencies talk better to each other and it's a framework instead of just one agency? And of course, we have a wonderful way in our part of the world of creating silos that really just become, in and of themselves, unable to actually affect policy across the board. And I think the whole concept of youth economy is really about a cross-cutting undertaking, right? It has to be youth mainstreaming young people in every single aspect of development, because they are a vital part of our human resource. And so we've seen some efforts in some agencies, like for instance with Ministry of Agriculture. You had the Youth Agricultural Enterprise program. You've seen, like say in Justice, for instance, you've seen some programs targeted at young people. I think what certainly needs to happen is that there has to be an overall strategy, and recognizing that every single agency is going to have to play its part in realizing that. And so that, I think, is really what is important. And Dinesh was making the point, of course, of how do you measure those things. That's important too. So once you have a strategy, we can monitor it properly, you can evaluate it properly, and everybody needs to be doing that accounting and seeing where we are at, because it really cannot just be something that's happening in the Ministry of Youth Development it has to be happening in every single ministry. And that's the approach that we have to take, that every single ministry or agency has an agenda for young people and can in fact deliver on that. I think I just wanted to make a point regarding the issue of education, because it's a vital part of that dynamic shift that we need to make, and to definitely agree with what Steffi is saying. The overhauling of our education system is vital in talking about equipping young people to move forward. I remember when I did electrical engineering at UWI in final year, they just introduced robotics. And robotics is something that we're talking about having children in preschool and primary school doing at this point in time. And so it's important that we look at it, look at what is cutting edge, look at the best practice, the best examples that we have out there, and realize that maybe what we're doing right now is simply just not working, and trying to figure out what can in fact work best. Now, I mean, that sounds a little bit controversial, because I find that our education system is one of those behemoths that takes a long time to change. You have a lot of traditional people doing it a certain way, and they want to keep it that way. But I think that's where we really need to see how we can get the students themselves to be able to drive forward their what they want to actually be studying.
Okay, I just let me inform you that I have no defenses to put up, because I mean, Mr. Brent from the South is here on the other end of the stick. So
no, that wasn't the verb.
All right.
They're doing some wonderful work.
All right. So
I understand.
Okay, wonderful. Miss Anya Edward, on that point as well, would you like to share anything that you believe?
Sure. I think that there are a lot of structures and organizations in place that provide services for young people, especially in terms of funding of business ideas. Steffi is there to confirm that through the program that she is coordinating at the St. Lucia Development Bank. But we also have an organization like the St. Lucia Social Development Fund and even Bell Fund, who collaborate with each other and provide a micro-enterprise fund for underprivileged persons who don't have the resources to go through the bank system and provide references. So you have that system. So I think it's a matter of informing or creating mass public education on the existing systems and organizations that provide services that are going to benefit the young people or the youth economy at large. And I mean, you may have to provide some incentives for these business organizations. But I would encourage a lot more investment or increased investments in the CSRs and even the philanthropy as an organization. Also, we can say or speak to the importance of public-private partnerships that will see to much more apprenticeship programs and job training programs for children at the school level, and not necessarily waiting to leave school and then for them to have to not be able to qualify for a job because our employers continue to ask for so many years experience that they don't have and that they would have needed to get from within the mother's womb.
Oh. Understood. So just two more questions for the panelists before we move on to taking questions and comments from the audience. And also let me remind our audience online or via Zoom, you can raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. So we will be taking questions from you guys as well. One of these questions to the panelists will be posed to Steffi. And one of the key challenges to the youth currently is that of the financial avenue and how it is that they fund the different projects that they would want to take up. So what are the available opportunities in regards to youth and finances and funding, and how can these be extended or accessed even under a youth economy initiative?
Thank you, Jovan. The opportunities for young people as it relates to financing would be, of course, commercial banks, credit unions, and, of course, the St. Lucia Development Bank.
Of course.
Of course. The St. Lucia Development Bank provides a funding called the Youth Enterprise Equity Fund. Now, that funding targets young people with businesses. In as much as that funding is so essential to our entrepreneurial ecosystem, to the financial life cycle of a business, what we have is a bigger issue. The fact that young people are not trained and really ready to be able to access the levels of finances available for them. When you look at accessing finance through a bank, you go to the bank, they would ask you for collateral. An 18-year-old, because remember, we're targeting people 18 years old, right? You just leave SAFA. What collateral you have? Right? So that's an issue. To target or to kind of treat that issue, the St. Lucia Development Bank also provides a partial credit program where young people would be able to come to the bank. You don't have collateral. We don't ask for the full thing. We ask you for a portion. I'm marketing, I know. But that is something that SLDB does provide. Fortunately, myself, along with some other business support agencies, well, SLDB, and we have Boost, we have SBDC, I see Fabian Isaac, and some other friends online. But we have been developing what we call an entrepreneurship seed capital fund, and the goal of that fund is to really target the problem. We believe that we have found what the problem is. And the problem really is that, as I said, young people they've not received that level of training. We intend, of course, to partner with SAFA on this initiative because SAFA does provide a level of training and the incubation needed for these young people to really develop their prototypes and that sort of thing. But that Entrepreneurship Seed Capital Fund could really solve the problem as it relates to funding and being able to develop your business to the level where you're now able to say, okay, I've taken my records, I know exactly what I need to do, I know exactly, or even if I don't know exactly what my product will be, but I've at least wet my toes to know what I want to do. But you have a lot of people, you have a lot of young people with ideas, so many. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young people with ideas, and they are eager to start their business. But when I sit down with them and I tell them, well, have you done your market research? They don't even know what in-depth market research is necessary. We have a copycat syndrome in St. Lucia that we need to kill. I don't know what we're going to give it to kill it, but we have to kill it. You have young people starting businesses because they see their neighbor down the road doing it, and as if it's looking like it's successful, and I want to do it too.
So that is part of the problem.
That is part of the problem.
Okay, wonderful. So these are the types of problems that you think that a unit such as a youth economy unit can lead to addressing or even come into the aid of that initiative that is taken up by the SLDB and the other institutions.
Yeah, I think SLDB can solve the problem. I think our government needs to be able to put enough resources into our business support agencies, into Export St. Lucia, into SBDC, into SL,
NYC.
into Boost, into NYC, into the St. Lucia Development Bank. I mean, we were promised something, we're waiting for it, but that's another situation. Okay. But I'm just saying that we need to provide the resources where the resources need to go to the agencies that are helping.
Okay, so before we move on to the final question, Mr. Dennis would like to make a contribution on that point.
So Steffi made some great points there. Of course, the Youth Seed Capital Fund was something that was started with Boost with the National Idea Pitch Competition. And we thought it could be bigger, so we had to move it to the St. Lucia Development Bank. But what's important is, we did a lot of research on this, and what's important is that if you give an entrepreneur or a young person money, they don't know how to use that money right away. They're coming off college or coming out to SATA, they learned about economies, they learned about accounts, but they never had the real world practical use of money and how it's done. So what's very important before people access this fund is education. And I think incubation is a big part, and it's something new to St. Lucia. We just started, we're probably the first people who started incubation. And when we started, 6 other people started incubation right after us. So I'm very proud of that. The Boost gave light to incubation and acceleration programs. But what's very important about incubation is that you can learn everything within months about what exactly, and it's targeted to your business. Okay. So we have mentors on there. We have people from different walks of life that we meet up with. You have educational programs. You have programs from the SBDC, which are very important, like design thinking, that helps you manage financially and also manage the tasks that you have to do as an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, you have a lot on your table.
Yeah.
I mean, you're growing up, you've seen how much things you have to do as an entrepreneur. There's a famous saying, you don't get sleep as an entrepreneur. You just don't. And very important that you have the tools and the support. And it's very important what Karek said earlier, Mr. George, that we have every agency supporting you.
Okay.
And it's not done in silos.
Okay.
That one person can have go to Export St. Lucia, say, I have this, and we have the same information at Invest St. Lucia, we have the same information
Yeah,
at
yeah.
SPDC.
Right, so
So it's
creating
all
that
like
stuff.
one system.
Yeah.
I believe that's what the youth economy should be.
Okay, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much. So we move on to our final question. And we spoke about so many different challenges and ways in which these challenges could be remedied. But I would like to ask Ms. Anya Charles, in your view, how would you measure the success of a youth economy initiative?
Thank you. I believe there are so many different success factors, and the most obvious one would be the reduction in youth unemployment. A reduction in crime as well. There will be more employment possibilities, so there will be a reduction in crime. We would have the standard of living, like Calix was saying, the standard of living within our young people. You would find young people are looking to buy condos instead of a 1 or 2 bedroom house. We will also have driven, motivated, and all-in-all constructive people. Therefore, mental health will also be affected positively. Economic activities, our people will be making money, they will be employing individuals, therefore there'll be more spending. And of course, reduction on the dependency on the state. Our youth would be in a better position to care for themselves, care for their families, and care for the elderly. Therefore, there will be a reduction on dependency on the state.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Less need for social programs.
Wonderful. So even from that, Mr. George, what would you be able to put some specific measurables to things, to the nature of what it is that she spoke about, or what measurables would you have used in terms of measuring the success of the youth economy?
Wow, thanks for that one again. On the spot. I think we would like to hope that we could create some tangible companies that are have a significant turnover. I don't know what the target is going to be. Maybe $500,000, $1 million a year. How many of those companies, by in 5 years' time, could be created? I think the skills area is another area that I think we need to focus on, in as much as you want to talk about entrepreneurship, but having experience before you actually can get, you need that ability to have that nursery, that pad of stability, so that you can then get to the point where you can branch out and able to actually support it. I think also vitally is recognizing that we are a small country, and that our economy has to be export-oriented, it has to be globally driven, and that aspect, I think, is vital. How many companies are we actually engaging in exports on a regular basis, or providing, whether it's goods or services? We've signed on to a number of these, the EPAs and what have you, but how can we actually get that to happen, and to make some of these things more export ready? How can we do that? High quality, world class products. And I think those are some of the measurables that I would definitely like to see being attached to something like this.
Okay, wonderful. So at this moment, as we press for time as well, we'll be engaging our audience, both virtual and in-house, as we take some questions or even some comments from you guys. There's a mic right to the middle of the room, so if you have a question, feel free to come up and ask it. So please state your name.
Good day, everyone. Greetings to everyone, of course, the board members and table. And of course, yourself, the host.
Just a second, just let me ensure that the mic is on and the persons online can hear. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Still not on? Okay.
One, two.
All right, go ahead.
So good evening. My name is Majid Norrens. I created a brand, Jera Farms, specifically in the agricultural field. I was here yesterday and I got invited here today, so it's kind of spur of the moment. Hence the reason I'm not prepared. We were actually doing some work on the farm today. A few things I wanted to mention is that we are in a visual world right now. and I think a lot of us, especially leadership, do not understand that we are in a visual world, social media. This is what the youth is looking at right now. This is what we are staring at right now. Like I mentioned yesterday, how many of the young people do you think are watching NTN right now, right? How many? Not many. And how many people were notified that we were actually having this session? I was only notified yesterday, and I'm very passionate about these things. You know, so I think that is the first place that we're failing in understanding exactly what we are dealing with, and the fact that we have young people on the board here. And yesterday I was very frustrated that we didn't have someone representing the youth yesterday, but I'm glad that we have this today. I'm familiar with a few faces here, and of course I like to commend especially Danish as far as what he's been doing. I'm now learning, and one of the things that I would say is that if we're talking about investing, right, you already have the cure. You already have people like, you know, the Boost, for example. Why don't we, as a government, right, from that standpoint, put some of our funds into programs like that, right, where they now can probably break into different sectors, you know, and break different, you know, developments where they can expand. And then with expansion, then the youth would have more availability to people like, you know. Yeah. So that is one place that we can start. SAFA is doing something right now, but when you think about it as well, there are businesses that are already on the go, and they're thinking, hey, well, maybe 2 years, you know, might be a little bit too much. And some people might just be leaving right now, which is where a bit something like that would come into place. So right. Boost, you in six months can say, hey, you know what, we can break that down for you. As far as the SLDB, right? You are in a position where you have other entities who can assist you. Mm-hmm. I've been there before. Yeah, I've been there. I've been many places. Yeah, program, everything. Been on the list and everything, and then it's just going to break you down. I can tell you one thing, it's just going to break you down. As someone myself who has been through the trials and yet to get any assistance whatsoever, right? And it's not always about financial assistance. It's always sometimes you just want to feel that someone is there with you that's going to give you that extra push for you to push even more. Not everyone would be as, you know, determined as myself, you know, or determined as someone else who's going to keep pushing. Some people are going to break down, and we have a lot of minds when we talk about youth that are not as developed or as, you know, rock hard as we as grown-ups are, you know. So knowing that I spoke to someone about an investment in my business, knowing that at night that person can sleep, and before they go to bed last night, you know, they thought about me, or they could message me, you know, because this is one of the things that we going through, we're not getting enough interest, you know. And as far as the venture capitalists as well, you know, around us, we have big entities all around us who are making, you know, a lot of money. Yeah. These are the mentors, you know, that could come in and provide a cycle where they can invest in us. If you have a business that is relating to them, then they can come back and invest in us. They could come back and say, hey, well, you know what, we're going to grant you something, but we're going to put someone on you to monitor what you're doing. We're going to do things like that. What about team building? We go to school and we say, hey, you know what, we're going to put you guys in groups. One person is going to be the scribe, one person is going to do this, that, and the other, right? And then we're going to work. So why don't we take these businesses and say, hey, you come into me on your own, and you probably don't have everything that you need. You don't have any, you know, like you were saying, like a lot of the young people, they don't have a plan. You know, they don't have a strong plan. So say, hey, why don't you come back to me with a proper team, you know, as an entrepreneur, you know, you need someone, business advisor, you need someone managing your funds, you need someone doing your marketing, you need that. You explain that to them. Yeah. Educate, right? And you tell them, hey, that's what we need. You bring a team together to me, and then maybe we can reevaluate you and say, hey, you know, we can work with you now, and then you have someone doing this, that, and the other. I think a lot of the time we don't take the time to show people. And a lot of the success stories out there, we don't even know about it, right? We have small businesses that are actually successful, and a lot of the youth are not seeing it. And sometimes just an example is all we need, you know, just seeing someone succeeding. But the fact that everyone is talking about failure, and everyone is saying, oh, I tried this, it's not working out. Someone down the road is doing this, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Because, you know, we keep saying that, okay, well, that person is doing this just because that person is doing that. But everyone wants to be successful. Yep. And you might have an idea that could be successful, and then because, you know, Tom is doing this and it's, you know, it's kind of working out for him, you know what, let me try that as well. You know, it's not, you rather than putting that person out and saying, hey, well, you know, you just a copycat, right? You could say, well, hey, I can see the value in what, you know, the mindset that you have.
Yeah.
We have to realize personalities as well, you know, in the young people and say, hey, this person is capable. Maybe I could match them up with that person, and then they could come together and form a good team. Rather than investing in one person at a time, you can form teams, and these guys can come together and work. I think we don't monitor as well who we invest in, and I think coming from the Ministry of Agriculture, I think sometimes what the government does is invest in who you know. It's always about who you know, who's in the background, who's this person, who's my cousin here, there, and there. And then you find like the people who have the real ideas, the people who are willing to push, you know, they don't get it, and you find the money going to waste most of the time.
Wonderful.
And as far as finance being available, we, as St. Lucians, we invest so much in other things. You know, we have a horse track that's just there. That is land that is available that could have been used for the agriculture, right? That is land. That is money that could have been invested in agriculture and youth, right? If you take all of that money and you take that land and you put it together, you know how many farms, you know how many things that we could stop importing. Right. You see a lot of these lines at West Tech here and there. That means people are importing things. We could build these businesses here. You understand? We could build these businesses here, and people could buy back, you know, from the local entities.
Right.
And I appreciate you being passionate about it, but the passion with me is like goosebumps on my skin, and I feel like we're just not doing enough, and we have the answers. The answers are there staring you right in the face.
It's true. It's true.
Invest in those places. I would come and say, hey, invest in me. I could do something, you know. But if I'm looking at the bigger picture, of course I want you to invest in my business so I can grow it, and maybe I can probably become a mentor for someone else. You have to hold me to that. If you're going to invest in me, you have to hold me to saying, hey, what I want you to do is invest in someone else when you make it, right? And you have to monitor these things. But instead of me doing that today, I would prefer say, like, just through this conversation, you invest in companies like Boost. You allow them to grow so that they can help us grow. And it's going to become a cycle. So rather than being selfish, which is what I think a lot of us are doing, rather than being selfish, I would say, hey, invest in companies like that, allow them to expand so we can grow. That's my input.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, young man. We move to another question coming from an in-house audience member.
It's not really a question.
No comment.
People my age, we're caught in the middle. You know, because 26, we just left school, right? And if 26 is the cutoff point of the definition of youth, then we're out, and old men say you're young, and young men say you're old. That's just a sidebar. I'm solution-oriented. And to me, what I'm hearing there, even without hearing what the actual youth economy plan is, by the way, I thought that's what we're hearing today. Even before hearing that, what I recognize needs to happen is that there must be consolidation. I'm sure you guys are tired. I'm tired of hearing talking. You're tired of the disparate, separate groups. I think this government has a responsibility and opportunity for consolidation. I like the point you made about investing in Boost, and you're right. Boost was not the first incubator. There were incubator ideas before. There were proposals on government ministers' desks before. Maybe out of that Boost came. But the point I'm making here is that there's a training section. He has he's in a different track. His track is that he's already a startup.
That's right.
And needs help. There's the ideation phase. So I think the program, I don't know if that's why Mr. George is here, because he's part of that planning group. I hope so. We look at it strategically. There must be a priority list.
Yes.
Barbados launched maybe 2 weeks ago a program. I think Mia Motley identified 4 or 5 programs that Barbados, areas that Barbados needs to focus on problems to create solutions for. Right. So we have to do that as well, because there are a million ideas or more. And there are a lot of people doing work in silos. There are 10 people with the same ideas, spending money in the same ideas, when they won't come together. So my suggestion is the strategies that have been created now and formed by the ministry seeks to consolidate all of the different agencies. So anybody within 15 and 50 years old Yeah, if they want to be part of the youth economy program, they go there, one space, one number. And then from there, you farm them out to SLDB, to Invest St. Lucia, whoever, but one number, one place, and even farm them out to South if it's training they require. But one place, one number. And that plan has 4, 5 key areas alone. Whether it's manufacturing, AI, whatever the areas are. And within that mechanism, obviously you have the startups and you have the started. Yeah, but it must be consolidated. It must be consolidated. One place. So SLB to talk to anybody, Youth Development Fund to talk to anybody by himself, send them back to one number. But it's Ministry of Commerce, one place, and it goes out from there.
Understood. Wonderful. I think we have a follow-up from Mr. Brent.
Sorry.
Go ahead with the follow-up,
All
and
right.
we'll take the next question.
Thank you very much, the 2 audience members who spoke up. I want to start by saying something which I think is very important. And finance informs almost everything right now, just like innovation. You need finance, you need money to make money. And the gentleman who spoke about agriculture, I feel that the farmers here get such a raw deal. In America, probably the most subsidized industry is agriculture, and agriculture wouldn't survive without subsidy. Okay, and I find in St. Lucia we're not putting enough money into agriculture, we're not insuring the people enough, we're not investing in mechanizing and automating agriculture, and that's very sad. Whatever industry it is takes finance. You look at Silicon Valley, which is doing so well, and they have a large pool of venture capitalists, and we need money to do that. And I don't want to belabor the point, but I want to say something. Iceland has very few natural resources, and during the 2008 recession, they were collapsing. The banking system was failing. And they got together and they said, you know what? We are going to invest in young people, and we are going to throw money into different areas. And Iceland now is the 4th largest producer of pharmaceuticals in the world because they invested in that. All right? And we need to start, and I want to put this out to the government, we need to start putting money into young people. All right? Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Let's take one more question from the audience, and then we'll take a few from the online community. So you could go ahead.
Good afternoon. A lot of discussion has already been set on the table, and we hear a lot of talk of youth involvement or having youth in almost all aspects. In the economy, we want the youth to be more involved. What I have come across sometimes is persons may have a product to sell. They may be creative and innovative, but oftentimes you find they are not able to sell that product. They're not able to stand on their own or speak. That passion they have burning inside, they are not able, when they get to a point where they have to put out a proposal, that they are not able to articulate. And I think this is a factor or an element that has to be incorporated. And in one of the speakers earlier mentioned silos, or having a department that deals with that. I believe it's a desk. I believe there needs to be a desk where youth can go in and get that direction. That one place that you get the answers that you're looking for. Yep. Too often we find when you have completed CXC or you complete SAFA, this is when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. We should start earlier, and this is my contribution.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. We have one more question from the audience. Or 2 more. Just let me take it.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
A little short. Thank you. My name is Anna K. Lord. I'm an adopted St. Lucian. I've been living here many years. That's my husband over there, Mr. Lord. My lovely daughter is at home. I am the head of research and strategy at DMR Insights Limited. We're a local research company which nobody knows about because oddly, most of the times that we get requests for research, whether it is for related to social work or market research, it's from overseas companies. And when K1 had decided to start the company here, because he used to work for a local marketing company, his plan originally at the time, and I'm speaking for him in this case, was that he wanted to build a business that would have offered work for the youth, because he himself at the time when we had met was what he would classify as a struggling youth. You know, there weren't a lot of opportunities there. When I spoke to him about what it was like for me growing up in Jamaica, I was very surprised that a lot of the programs that had helped me to get to where I was in my career, he did not have. For example, when you finish high school, there is a youth program that automatically helps you to get a job. It's an internship, but you go down to the office, you let them know that you'd like to intern at X and X company, and they'd give you a call, and right out of CXC, you can get a job with a stipend that covers, like, you know, your lunch and your bus fare, but you can at least start. And it was through that program that I found my interest in the industry I work in now, which is research. And it was through that opportunity that I didn't have a blank resume that showed A1s in CXCs, but also that I was working with the government first, because it was a government job that I got. Also, as it related to housing, that was another program that wasn't here. So when I said, okay, well, if you just want a house, just go to your housing trust. And he's like, what's that? And I said, well, in Jamaica, when you get a job, you know, you pay your income taxes, your PAYE, etc., but a portion of your salary goes towards this trust. And once you pay this trust for, say, 52 weeks, you can go back to the trust and take out money for a mortgage, whether it is you want an apartment, you want a house. As long as you've been paying that tax for 52 weeks, I can go and buy a house. So it's like natural transition for a lot of us youth back home, where once you leave school, you can find an avenue for a job, find an avenue for housing. And I could understand how he felt, as well as some of the other St. Lucian friends that I had, and it was very heartbreaking that they felt that once you finish Sir Arthur Lewis, where do you go from there? What happens after that, right? And taking us back to the research company that he started, when he had hoped that, you know, many of the youth would have been interested in working with him, it was there an air of apprehension and mistrust, as in the youth here, they don't necessarily feel like a company is here for them. What are you trying to get out of me? What am I giving for this? They didn't just see it as, oh, it's a virtual job. How am I going to get paid? Are you trying to scam me? And people would be hesitant to work online because they didn't necessarily trust the online space. And it ended up that a lot of the workers that we were working with when we just started the company were overseas. People from Barbados, people from Jamaica, people from Colombia would all flock, send resumes in, they do their jobs, and they get paid sometimes $2,000 US dollars, $3,000 US dollars for working a project. But our St. Lucian family rarely participated in that process. So what I wanted to do was kind of just highlight that many of our Caribbean countries might not be doing great, but they are taking this step in trying to, you know, and I guess this is for the government here to listen and to try to make a change. Of course, it is going to, everything takes money and it's always going to be expensive, but there are actually low-cost solutions that can make a difference. For example, if it is that you guys have virtual internships, a lot of companies, marketing companies, research companies are looking for people who can do data entry from home. That's a simple initiative that can be employed for finish Sir Arthur Lewis. You need some work experience. Maybe you can work as a data entry clerk from home. It doesn't cost you any bus fare to go to work. You literally just need an internet access and a laptop at home, right? There's also a lack of measurement as it relates to the different programs that we have here. When it is that we invest money in these different programs, how do we know that they're successful? How do we know that the youth that we're trying to reach are being felt? One of the projects we did in Dominica, a research project after the massive hurricane, I think it was Maria, there was no infrastructure there. You know, that was a really heartbreaking story because they had to start over. There was no electricity, there was no water, it was really tough. And we were hired by a company to come over and talk to the people to figure out what was going on. Separately from the government hiring us to do the study, separate from the company they hired to do the study, they hired us to back check the company. So if they're going to give this money to say, okay, every member of the, every head of the community is supposed to give 2 bags of rice, and they're supposed to go back and ask, do you need a tarpaulin? Was your roof damaged? Do you need physical cash to fix this? Can you feed your families? And they're giving the money to the people who are in charge. There's a second group, independent, unbeknownst to them, that is hired to check, did you actually get this money that we gave the member to give to you? Did you get this money? Can you feed your family? Are you homed? Are you housed? And I feel like that's something that's missing in a lot of the initiatives that's done, not only in St. Lucia, but in some of the other countries locally as well, that there isn't enough back check, there's not enough measurement. Even if it is that we were going to put on this initiative, was there someone else to check? Okay, do we have a list? We have an objective of having at least 200 people joining from Zoom. Who is that person that's put in that position? Just to check. And that's not going to cost us any money, much more money, to have somebody to do these extra measurements.
Okay.
My final point, sorry.
That's okay.
Is also this initiative that I came across in the UK, where what they wanted to do is not just create these programs in the schools where you can ensure that, okay, when you leave school, there's this for you, and there's that for you, and there's that for you. There is a social and emotional assessment that checks how the students are feeling before they leave school. A lot of these at-risk youths are at risk that we don't even know about. There's a group we know and a group we don't know, that they're not going to talk to anybody. And what they're doing in the UK with this assessment program is that periodically throughout the school year, there's a team of psychologists that will come into the school, separate from the guidance counselor, that will do just an assessment, just to talk to them, to tell us, what's it like at home? How are you feeling with your teacher? How are you feeling about school? And it's private. And they use this aggregated data to kind of assess how the teachers are performing, how much is it that, how well are the students developing on an emotional level, and preparing them for real world exercises. So I think that's something also that St. Lucia can possibly look into. And those are just some points I wanted to raise. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you. We have another comment or question from in-house. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Sunita Daniel. I know the time is short, so I'm just going to make a few observations. Thank you, Glenn. I have had discussions, and we have people coming into Export St. Lucia very frequently, asking us about the youth economy and how they can make use of the youth economy. And one of the things we've found is that people have this notion or this concept in their mind that the youth economy is based on the internet, is based on technology solely, is based on new app development, like Mr. St. Catherine said, that kind of realm. That's where the general sentiment is. I think we also need to keep in mind that just because we have a traditional sector, we have a traditional economy, and just because we are not including currently technology in that does not make it old. That you can actually add technology into the traditional sector and actually gain quite a lot from it. And I think that's one of the things the youth economies must do. You must look at what are the opportunities throughout your economy. And it's not only a youth economy apart from your general economy, but how does the existing economy you have, how does it contribute to what the objectives you have for your youth? And I think that's where you identify where your limitations are and the openings and where you can create some kind of impact. The other thing, very quickly, is we tend a lot to focus on the youth who are at school, who have degrees, who probably went to SAFA, can afford to go to SAFA. What about the youth where the transformation in your economy you can really come from, which are the at-risk youth, the vulnerable youth? When you look at your youth population, who are the unemployed? Who are young men? Young men at risk on the streets. Is the youth economy looking at any kind of intervention to look at these people and how you target those people? And I think colleagues brought it up. Skills development, tiling, basic, that's part of the youth economy. Tiling, plumbing, what are we doing to ensure that these people or anybody who has that kind of interest is able to really tap into every part of your economy, and not saying we're going to build a separate economy called the youth economy, but an economy that the youth can tap into. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I think we also have a contribution on that point from Mr. St. Catherine.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ms. Daniel. I like your points. And one of the first things I want to say is that I agree with you. We need to not ignore the traditional economies. However, I do think we need to mechanize them. And I'll give you an example. With fisheries right now, we have an older population doing fishing. We don't have many young people going out to fish because young people say, nah, I'm going out in the sun just so. And one of the things that we've been trying to do at Alpha Lewis is that we've been trying to push the blue economy, but we want to mechanize it. We want the young people to use bigger boats. You don't have to be in the sun. The bigger boats are trawlers. Some of them are quite comfortable with AC and so forth.
And more money.
And these can, yeah, these make more money. They can stay out at sea longer and so forth. So I think the idea, you're very right, the idea is not to ignore the traditional jobs and so forth, but we need to sort of mechanize it. Okay? And when it comes to the at-risk youth, I agree with you. A lot of them do not have the qualifications and so forth. And one of the things that we at SAF are doing, but we need to do more of, like next year we have a proposal to train about 150 people in entrepreneurship. We need to do that, and we're not asking for all these CXCs and so forth. The problem again is finance. If we bring in 150 people to train, we need resources to train them. Mm-hmm. And these 150 people need to prototype the items to put on the shelf. That takes money. Setting up the lab takes money and so forth. Oh, SLDB has money. All right, so now that I just received some money, I mean, my point is moot. Yeah, but very good points, Ms. Daniel. Thank you for that.
And there you see the importance of not working in silos, because
yeah, exactly.
there you have the opportunity and you have the finances that you need. So if there is anyone online via Zoom who has a question, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll allow you to make a contribution or ask a question.
We need to sit down then.
Yeah, definitely.
Great contribution.
All right. I don't think we have any questions from the online platform. We will just take one more question from the in-house audience or comment, and then we will wrap up.
Hi guys, I'm K1 Lord, and I am a solution entrepreneur. I have a few comments and questions to ask. Number one is that I would like to address that we always say that the youth are our future. I have experience in this because I was once a youth some time ago, you know. But much like a lot of people that I know now, we're not youths anymore. And back then, I had a lot of dreams, I had a lot of aspirations, and I made proposals, and I came to the places where I was supposed to go, and all of that stuff, all of that passion and drive. They say that the youth is wasted on the young, but honestly, it's not a waste because we try so hard. Unfortunately, a lot of the initiatives that I tried when I was a youth, it fell on deaf ears, and it's really unfortunate that, you know, that the youth aren't taken into consideration. And one of the things that I realized was that the people or the powers that be were not ready as yet to understand or identify with what I was trying to come across or to them, or they were, for lack of a better word, ignorant of, you know, what, you know, we were trying to advise them on, that this is the future, this is happening and whatnot. So let's say, for instance, since I am a founder of an esports group or a video game group, it is actually one of the largest industries in the world. And right now, the revenue that it's pulling is like over $100 billion right now. And by 2025, that's going to be $300 billion that's projected. And there's so many opportunities to the youth right now. One of the questions that I wanted to ask on the side to this gentleman over here is that I understood that you have the innovation labs or whatnot. Yeah. Do you think that the gaming industry is actually one of those realms that you may be interested in? Because right now in the UK, France, Germany, and many universities actually do have esports / gaming facilities that are prepared, because I'd like to say that gaming is not just the stigma of a waste of time, and not just a case where, you know, people just play for fun or whatnot. It's beyond just being a gamer and just playing video games. You know, there are writers, there are animators, there are people, there are sound engineers, there are people who create the concepts and all that stuff, and even marketing of the games and stuff, you know, and analysis, testing. there are so many avenues that are available, but unfortunately in my push into that industry, and many years ago when I tried to do this, I guess the powers that be were just unaware, of what the potential could be. And I think a lot of youth have a lot of ideas, but unfortunately that because the powers that be do not understand, they either put it on the back burner or they don't follow through. And we need people to follow through. Yeah?
Okay, yeah, so I want to address that quickly, and I know time is running out.
No, so yes, it's actually not running out. So you
it's not running out? Oh. All right, gaming, as you say, is very important. Actually, when we were designing the ICT Media Lab, that's one of the things we considered. Because there are a lot of jobs in gaming. I mean, designing the graphics, the sound, and so forth. So it is an industry to tap into, and as you said, it's worth over $100 billion, right? In fact, I am thinking pretty soon gaming will be at the Olympics. So it's something that we consider very much. The other aspect about gaming is that we are trying to get a game from Australia which applies to the Caribbean in the virtual reality lab. And what it is, it's a game to protect the Great Barrier Reef. So if there's something like too many vessels passing and dumping oil, you need to play the game and figure out how to deal with that to solve the problem. So gaming can be used as an educational tool also.
Correct.
So yes, we have been considering gaming, and it is very important. It's more important than people think. Yes.
Okay. Can I have just one more thing? I wanted to state here. Let me just turn this on. Technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the other thing that I wanted to come across here is that I wish that there was a way in order to push aspiration, because I don't think, and that's me personally, I don't think that there's a lot of focus for the youth to aspire. Right now, in this generation, there is a lot of coveting wealth. We see that and we want it.
Yeah.
We covet, the celebrities, and we covet, the material stuff that they have. And it's like not taking steps to it, rather than you want what you see. But I think that there's a difference now, or a shift now, because before there used to be a lot of aspiration, but aspiration is killed because, like this gentleman over here, because I can hear it in his heart that he aspires, and so many other people aspire, but it gets killed after a while because the reality is that you hit reality.
Yeah.
I wish back in the day that somebody would have asked me while I was in secondary school, hey man, what salary would you like when you come out of school? Nobody asked you that. And if you would ask a student that, they would be like, yeah, $1,500. They're not going to do nothing for you, but they have no idea what the reality is. Okay, let's say for instance, oh, well, I want $5,000. Okay, do you know what you have to do to earn $5,000? And why is it that you want to earn $5,000? Do you want to have a house? Do you want to aspire to open a business? What do you want to do? The aspiration meeting reality is a very key component that should be introduced very early, and I wish that someone back in the day would have done that for us, and I'm urging you guys to try to help the youth in understanding what it is that they would need to do and guide them using that aspiration. And on that piece, I noticed that St. Lucians really try to lift up and praise, people for trying their best and not staying down. So you would see the common guy, opening up a business because, he's selling sea moss by the road, and I'm a businessman because, I'm opening a chicken van, and I'm a businessman because I'm selling coconuts by the road. And we all say, yeah, great for you and stuff or whatever, but you guys have to realize that this was not their original dream. This was not their original dream. They aspired for greater than that. So we can't just praise them and say, yeah, you're doing good, they would want to be doing even better. So that's a message for you guys as well, to take that into consideration. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have a point on that contribution by Mr. Khalid.
Yeah, and there were so many amazing contributions. I'm just trying to tie a few of them in together. I think Margin was making the point, I hope I got the name correct, that we quite often are not celebrating the success stories. And, you know, we tend to look way up on the top when we're talking about Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and the big boys. But we need to also talk about, well, I don't want to call them ordinary success stories, but success stories that are attainable, that people can see the progression as to how they actually get there. I think that's really, really vital in reaching out to young people. And Kwan, I mean, K1, Anna K and K1. Okay, all right. I mean, it's so important what I think he was talking about in terms of games and reaching people. A lot of our young people right now, where they're at is in that reality. And I think we need to appreciate that. They're talking about Roblox and Fortnite, and that's where they are. And some people don't think that there's a value to that because of the amount of time and obsession that they take. But people learn through imitation, they learn through repetition, they learn through games. I mean, there's a whole... and they earn through it. I mean, look at the success story of this Korean guy who came up with Squid Game and what have you, which is this amazing thing right now. But it's vital. I mean, I can just give you an example of a game that I loved, which was SimCity, which is now, the big thing now is City Skyline, right? And how that is a huge community. I mean, if we had our planners actually playing this, we would be far better off in terms of our urban and regional planning right here in St. Lucia when you think about it. So there is a lot that is out there. It's a huge industry, and equipping our young people to being at that cutting edge is really where I think is the best thing that we can actually do at this point in time if we want to be able to achieve that. And that's what the Singapores are doing, that's what the Koreas are doing, that's what the Finlands are doing. That is where we have to go. If we're talking about doing that, making that leap, that quantum leap, then it's important that we start having those types of conversations about science, technology, and innovation. Research and development has to come into play. And it doesn't always require a massive amount of money, but at least if we're saying that, look, you say what the target is, 2% of your GDP is supposed to be going towards that, it means that how can you actually factor this in across your existing traditional economic activities as well as the potential for doing some of the cutting edge ones. Okay. So I'm really, really glad that you guys are into data analytics and pushing that, because we really need a lot more of those companies. Very, very quickly, the issue of those barriers to access exports and the broader economy, sometimes very basic things like the absence of not having online merchant services or merchant accounts for companies to be able to, access payments or credit card payments overseas. That's an area that could be a very quick win. I mean, if a lot of more people could see how they could actually get their money from the outside world a lot easier than the PayPals and some of the other facilities that are out there, that could help a lot. So I think we need to look at some of these immediate barriers that are keeping people back from earning a living.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. So in order for us not to ignore the online platform, just let me read out one comment from there, and then we move on to our final question or comment. We have a comment on the Zoom platform from Mr. Kurt Augustine. He stated that we need to find ways to assess our competencies better, because a young person can have the ability to be a great manager, but because of the lack of experience on a resume, they are denied an opportunity. Age or experiences does not define your capability and potential. Therefore, we need to trust the youth with responsibility. That's a very valid point right there. And one of his other points, he noted that he is a technological professional, and the web presence and branding is really poor. Therefore, we need to ensure that we have good online representation to attract investors. All right, wonderful. So we take our final comment or question. You could go ahead, sir.
Yes, Jerry George, president of the St. Lucia ICT Association. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of points that were made. I remember Sunita mentioned that, made the point that the youth economy is not strictly the internet. And I want to support that by way of giving an experience that we had. We were rolling out some community internet projects, and in one particular community, when we were putting up the equipment and doing our surveys and so on, and there were a bunch of young guys sitting around, so I sought to engage them, and they asked, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're putting internet and Wi-Fi so you guys can have access and so on. And the guy said, we don't need that. So I said, why? He said, what are we going to do with that? And in the engagement, what he pointed out was that this was a fishing and agricultural community. And he said, where does a young man go to learn fishing? Where does he go to learn to be a farmer? And he gave the examples where back in the days of the junior secondary, you had trades being taught in those schools, and persons who were leaving school being able to go directly into jobs. For whatever reason, we seem to have gone backwards. They are now coming out with more CXC subjects, but they're not trade ready. They're not employment ready. And what resonated with me, the young lady from SLDB, where she mentioned, I think somebody else mentioned about the silos, and she said, we need more conversations, because you have different groups doing different things, but they're not talking to each other. So we want to push fishing, but where do people go and learn fishing? And how can they be taught that the internet is a tool that will help with fishing? So the internet is not the end in and of itself. And yes, it's not gaming and everything sounds sexy and so on, but at the end of the day, it is a tool. It's a tool just as much for gaming as it is for marketing, for research, and so on. And I think those are some of the conversations and those are some of the collaborations that we need, where the different groups get to talk to each other and get to better leverage the things that we have available. Because in many cases, a lot of the stuff is readily available. We just don't make use of it, or we don't make use of it effectively. We're spending a lot of money doing the same things over and over and over, checking boxes to say that we have completed the program. But where's the monitoring? Where's the follow-up, as someone else brought up? How do we show that for example, when a web design class is done, we show that we trained 200 people in web design, but what happens two weeks after, a month after? What happens? Are those persons earning monies based on that training that money was spent for? So we really need to do a lot more collaboration, really need to get a lot of the agencies talking to them and try to eliminate as much as possible the silos that we find ourselves building and thinking that those are going places. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So let me thank our esteemed panelists for their contribution to this fruitful discussion on how the initiative of a youth economy can propel the youth to contributing to economic growth and national productivity of our country. I'd also like to thank our in-house audience for their comments and questions, also our online viewers. It was a very fruitful discussion, and I want us to take away from this discussion that whatever the initiative of a youth economy is, let us not close it off to one aspect, let us not close it off to one place, let us not build another silo, but come together and form a place where the youth can come and get everything and be able to participate in the economy. So let me thank you again, our panelists, for your participation, and also to our audience, both virtual and in-house, for contributing to the discussion. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.